Welcome to the deep dive, where we sift through the information so you don't have to.
Think of it as your shortcut to getting really informed on a topic.
Exactly. Today, we're jumping into something specific, key vocabulary for the TOEFL test.
Right, and our source here is Prep Scholar's Essential Vocab Series Complete Word List.
Which has, I believe, 327 words they say are essential.
That's the one. Now, whether you're actually prepping for the TOEFL or maybe you just want to expand your English vocab.
Or you're just a language nerd like us.
Yeah, maybe. You're in the right place. We're not just going to read definitions, though.
No way. The idea is to pull out the really valuable bits, maybe connect some dots for you, give you those little aha moments.
Exactly, because just listing 327 words, that would be, well, a bit much.
A marathon, yeah. So our mission today is really to extract the key nuggets, group them together thematically.
Makes it easier to remember, easier to see the relationships.
Right. It's not about just memorizing. It's about understanding, hopefully making it more efficient and maybe even interesting.
Let's hope so.
Okay, let's dive in. We thought we'd start with words about quantity, having a lot of something or not much at all. Abundance and scarcity.
Makes sense. Good place to start. So you've got words like abundant and ample.
Okay.
Both basically mean there's a large amount, right? Plentiful.
So like abundant sunshine or an ample supply of coffee. Please tell me there's an ample supply of coffee.
We can hope.
Yeah.
Abundant opportunities and ample amount of evidence, that kind of thing.
It feels like ample often suggests enough or even more than enough in a good way. You wouldn't say an ample amount of problems usually.
That's a fair point. It does often carry that positive, sufficient connotation. Then there's copious.
Copious, how's that different? Still means a lot, right?
It does, but often implies a very large quantity, maybe even overflowing. Think copious notes taken during a lecture.
Oh, okay. So maybe more than just abundant, like really expensive.
Exactly. Or copious research that suggests thoroughness, maybe digging really deep because you gathered so much information.
That's interesting. So it's not just volume, but implies a certain dedication or depth sometimes.
It can, yeah. Context is key. Now, flip side, paucity.
Paucity. That sounds like the opposite. Lack of something.
Precisely. A scarcity, very small amounts. You might talk about a paucity of funding or a paucity of research on a very specific niche topic.
Okay, so seeing abundant, ample, copious versus paucity really draws a clear line.
It really highlights that spectrum of quantity, doesn't it?
Definitely helps it stick. Okay, let's shift gears. How about words describing improvement or decline? Getting better or getting worse?
Oh yeah, super relevant, especially in academic writing or professional settings. You've got amend.
Amend, like to fix or improve something.
Exactly. To change for the better. You amend a document, amend a proposal based on feedback.
Okay, and then augment.
Augment means to increase something, make it larger, or perhaps more substantial.
Like augmenting your savings or augmenting your knowledge.
Yes, precisely. Adding to it.
Is there a point where augmenting becomes too much? Like you can augment something negatively.
That's a really insightful question. Generally, augment implies a positive or neutral increase, but yeah, context matters. You could, I suppose, augment a problem by adding more complexity unnecessarily. Over-augmentation could be a thing.
Huh. Okay. Good point. And we also have enhance, right?
Right. Enhance, to intensify, magnify, make something better in quality.
Enhancing the flavor, enhancing your skills, enhancing an image.
Exactly. So amend, augment, enhance, all pointing upwards towards improvement.
Got it. So what about the other way, going downhill?
Well, there's degrade to lower in quality or status.
Okay. Like outdated equipment might degrade performance, or low morale degrades teamwork.
Perfect examples. Then there's wilt.
Wilt. That immediately makes me think of a plant drooping, losing life.
It's a great visual, isn't it? That loss of energy or vitality. It captures decline very effectively.
Yeah. And decay. How's that different?
Decay often suggests a more gradual decline. Health, strength, quality, even excellence can decay over time. Think of tooth decay or the decay of old buildings.
So more of a slow rot or fading away.
Kinda, yeah. So you see the contrast. Amend, augment, enhance are about building up, improving.
While degrade, wilt, decay are about breaking down, declining.
Exactly. Seeing them in pairs like this helps, I think.
It really does. Okay, next theme. Agreement and disagreement. Pretty fundamental for any discussion or argument, right?
Absolutely crucial. So on the agreement side, you have concur.
Concur sounds a bit more formal than just agree.
It often is, yeah. You might say, I concur with the previous speaker, or researchers might concur with findings in a study.
Okay. And coalesce. That sounds like coming together.
It is. To combine, merge, grow together into one body or group. Ideas can coalesce, or different factions might coalesce around a common goal.
So it's like agreement through merging or forming a unified whole.
Precisely. It implies things blending or uniting. Now, for the opposite, disagreement, we have conflict.
Conflict. Pretty general term, right? A fight, a struggle, a clash of ideas.
Yep. Covers a lot of ground. Then, more specifically, contradict.
To say the opposite, if my data contradicts your data.
Then they don't match up. They suggest opposite things.
Yeah.
But your question earlier was, good to two different perspectives automatically contradict.
Right. Maybe they just show different sides.
Exactly. Contradict usually implies a direct opposition, like saying yes when someone else says no. It's a strong word.
Okay. And then you have words that feel more active, more aggressive almost, like antagonize and quarrel.
Yeah, antagonize is when you deliberately provoke someone, try to make them hostile or angry.
Like poking the bear.
Pretty much. And quarrel is usually a more verbal, often informal argument or fight. Kids quarrel, families quarrel.
Got it. So we go from agreement like concur and coalesce to general disagreement with conflict, stating the opposite with contradict, and then actively fighting with antagonize and quarrel.
That's a good summary of the spectrum there.
Helpful. Okay, let's switch to clarity. Being clear or not so clear, how we express things.
Essential, especially for something like the TOEFL writing section. So making things clear, clarify.
Simple enough, remove confusion, make it understandable.
Right. And transparent.
Transparent, like glass, you can see through it. So easy to understand, no hidden meanings, open, honest.
Exactly that. Transparency in government or a transparent process that suggests nothing is hidden.
Okay. Now the other side, unclear. Ambiguous.
Ambiguous means having more than one possible meaning. It creates uncertainty.
Like an ambiguous statement could be interpreted in different ways, or ambiguous results in an experiment need more work.
Perfect. Yes. Then there's garbled.
Garbled. That sounds like noise distortion.
It is. Communication that's mixed up, distorted, hard to understand, like a bad phone connection making speech garbled.
Okay, makes sense. And obscure.
Obscure means not well known, uncertain, or difficult to understand. An obscure poet, an obscure passage in a text.
So it's unclear because it's hidden or rare or just complex.
Could be any of those, yeah. So clarity with clarify and transparent.
Contrasted with the fuzziness of ambiguous, the distortion of garbled, and the hidden nature of obscure.
You got it.
These pairs are really working. All right, next up. Change versus stability. Things moving or things staying put.
A constant tension in life, right? So for change, we have adjust.
Adjust. Making small changes to fit better, like adjusting your seat or adjusting a plane.
Exactly. Adapting it slightly. And then modify, which is maybe a bit broader.
Modify just means to change, basically. Modify a design, modify behavior.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
A general term for alteration. We also have words describing the process of change. Like transition, moving from one state to another.
Okay. The transition from student life to working life, for example.
Exactly. And evolve. That suggests gradual change, often developing over time.
Like species evolve, or ideas evolve, or a company's strategy evolves. Often implies improvement or adaptation, maybe?
Often, yes, but not always. It's fundamentally about gradual change. Now, what about staying the same?
Stability.
Right. We have stable, unlikely to change, fail, or give way. A stable structure, a stable economy, a stable person.
Reliable, consistent, and persist. That sounds like stability, but maybe with some effort involved.
That's a great way to put it. Persist means to continue firmly, especially against opposition or difficulty.
So the problem persists despite our efforts. Or she persisted in her studies even when it got tough. It has that determination element.
It really does. An unwillingness to give up or change course easily. And one more for change. Fluctuate.
Fluctuate, going up and down, changing irregularly.
Precisely. Prices fluctuate, temperatures fluctuate, your mood might fluctuate. Constant, often unpredictable change.
Okay, so we have change like adjust, modify, transition, evolve, fluctuate, versus staying the same with stable and persist.
Covers the main ground there, I think.
This vocab list is growing. Okay, importance and insignificance. What matters, what doesn't.
Yeah, evaluating significance is key. So for important things, major.
Major. Simple. Very important. A major issue. A major discovery.
Right. And primary.
Primary. First, main, most important. Primary reason, primary goal.
Exactly. Sets the main focus. Then words that really underline importance. Fundamental.
Fundamental. Basic, essential, the foundation of something. Fundamental rights. Fundamental principles.
Couldn't say it better. And integral.
Integral. Necessary to make something whole or complete. Like brakes are an integral part of a car. Honesty is integral to trust.
Perfect examples. Without it, the thing is incomplete or doesn't function correctly. Now, the other end, things that aren't important.
Okay.
Frivolous.
Frivolous. Sounds like something silly, unnecessary, lacking seriousness. A frivolous lawsuit, frivolous spending.
Exactly. Trivial. And incidental.
Incidental, like happening by chance alongside something more important, a minor part.
Yeah. Incidental expenses on a business trip or an incidental finding in research, something you noticed but wasn't the main focus.
So you could probably ignore it without losing the main point. And peripheral.
Peripheral means on the edge, outside the main area. Think peripheral vision.
So something of lesser importance because it's not central to the issue.
Exactly. So important. Major, primary, fundamental, integral, not so important. Frivolous, incidental, peripheral.
Makes sense. Okay, moving on. How about showing versus hiding? Revealing things or keeping them secret?
Visibility versus concealment. Okay? To show something. Demonstrate.
Demonstrate, like to prove something or show how it works. Demonstrate a product, demonstrate understanding.
Providing evidence or showing capability. And illustrate.
Illustrate. Using examples to make something clearer, like illustrating a point with a story.
Precisely. Making abstract ideas concrete. Then there's expose.
Expose sounds like revealing something hidden, often something negative, exposing corruption, exposing a secret.
It often carries that connotation, yes. Bringing something hidden into the open and convey.
To communicate or transmit, convey information, convey meaning, convey feelings.
Exactly. Making something known. So showing or revealing uses demonstrate, illustrate, expose, convey. Now hiding.
Keeping things under wraps.
Conceal. Simply means to hide, prevent from being seen or known.
Conceal evidence, conceal your emotions. Straightforward. And evade.
Evade means to avoid something, often cleverly or deceitfully. You can evade capture, but you can also evade a question.
So avoiding giving a direct answer, avoiding revealing information.
Exactly. So you're either showing with demonstrate, illustrate, expose, convey, or hiding with conceal and evade.
Got it. Okay, nearly there with the themes. How about words describing force or influence, exerting power?
Right. This gets into power dynamics. You have coerce.
Coerce. Sounds negative. Forcing someone.
Yes. Using threats or force to make someone do something against their will. It implies pressure and lack of consent.
Okay. And impose.
Impose means to force something, like a rule or tax, to be accepted or put in place. Often implies authority.
Like imposing your will on others or the government imposing regulations.
Right. Then there's influence.
Influence. Having an impact, affecting someone's thoughts or actions, but maybe not forceful like coerce.
Generally less forceful, yes. It's the capacity to have an effect. Influence can be subtle or strong, positive or negative.
And exploit.
Exploit means to make use of something, often for selfish gain. It can mean using a resource effectively, but often implies using a person or situation unfairly.
Right. Exploiting workers, exploiting a loophole, usually has that negative, self-serving feel.
It often does. And then there are words about limiting action. Constrain.
Constrain, to restrict or limit, like being constrained by budget or constrained by rule.
Yes, holding something back. And deter.
Deter, to discourage someone from doing something, usually by making them afraid of the consequences.
Exactly, like security cameras might deter thieves, creating a reason not to act.
Okay, so we see different shades of power. Forcing with coerce and impose, affecting with influence, maybe unfairly using with exploit, and limiting with constrain and deter.
It's a complex area, and the vocabulary reflects that.
Definitely. Okay, let's look at beginnings and ends, starting and stopping.
Simple but essential for beginnings.
Initial, first. The initial step, the initial reaction.
Right. And origin.
Origin, the source, where something started. The origin of the species. The origin of the conflict.
Exactly. The starting point or source.
Yeah.
Opposite end.
Terminal. At the end, like a terminal station or terminal illness marks the final point.
It does. And cease.
Cease. Stop.
Stop.
Cease fire. Cease operations.
Just mean to end an action or condition. And one more related word. Subsequent.
Subsequent. Meaning coming after.
Yes. Following something else in time or order. The initial meeting and the subsequent developments.
Okay, so initial origin at the start, terminal, cease at the end, and subsequent showing what comes next.
You've got the timeline.
Almost done with our groups. How about skill versus lack of skill, being good at something or not?
Relatable for sure. So high skill, expertise.
Expertise, expert knowledge, deep skill in a field, earned through experience, right?
Usually, yes. Specialized and deep knowledge. And knack.
Knack. That feels more like a natural talent. Having a knack for languages or a knack for fixing things.
Exactly. A special, often intuitive skill or talent. Now, the other side.
Lack of skill.
Amateur.
Amateur. Someone who does something for fun, not professionally, so maybe less skilled. Or just inexperienced.
Can mean both, yeah.
Yeah.
Lacking professional level skill or experience. And incompetent.
Ooh, that sounds harsher. Incompetent just means unable to do something properly, lacking the basic ability.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Not having the necessary skills, incapable. So
Right.
you have the skilled expertise, knack.
Versus the less skilled or incapable, amateur, incompetent.
That covers it. And finally, as promised,
Yeah.
just a few extra interesting words, the phonic outliers maybe, but really useful.
Ah, the bonus round. The linguistic gems. Lay them on us.
Okay, how about adamant,
Adamant, really stubborn, refusing to change your mind.
rotally, unshakable, anomaly,
Something weird, different from the norm. An outlier.
exactly, doesn't fit the pattern, cacophony,
Oh, that sounds unpleasant. Like harsh, jarring noise.
a horrible mixture of sounds, yes.
But
Dilemma,
a tough choice, stuck between two bad options or two difficult ones.
a situation with no easy choice.
Yeah.
Epitome,
The perfect example of something, like she's the epitome of grace.
exactly, the perfect representation. Thinking about the TOEFL, aiming for the epitome of clarity in your essay, that's a great goal.
Good tie-in. Keep going.
Irony,
Saying the opposite of what you mean, often for humorous effect. Or a situation that's strangely contradictory.
both, yes. Verbal irony or situational irony. Lampoon,
To make fun of something publicly, like satire.
right, criticizing through ridicule or sarcasm. Nonchalant,
Appearing cool, calm, unconcerned, casually indifferent.
perfectly put.
Rhetorical.
Relating to the art of persuasion, like a rhetorical question isn't meant to be answered.
Exactly. Language used to impress or persuade. Scrutinized.
To examine something really closely, carefully.
Very thoroughly, yes. And last one, vestige.
Vestige, like a small trace or remnant of something that's mostly gone.
Precisely. A trace of something disappearing or long past. Wow. That's a great final set. Words like adamant, anomaly, cacophony, vestige, they just have such specific flavors, don't they?
They really do. They add nuance and precision to your language.
So exploring all these words, especially grouped by themes, hopefully that gives you, our listeners, a much better handle on them than just a list.
That's the idea. Understanding the connections makes them easier to learn and, crucially, easier to use.
So wrapping up this deep dive into TOEFL vocabulary, it's pretty clear that getting comfortable with these words goes way beyond just the test, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's about clearer communication overall, academic success. Yeah, but also just feeling more confident expressing yourself in English.
And this whole deep dive approach, focusing, organizing by theme, it's just a really efficient way to learn, isn't it?
It really is. Cuts through the noise, gets to the core stuff without overwhelming you.
So maybe a final thought for you to ponder. If you just take a few of these words we talked about today, how might using more precise vocabulary like this actually change how you see things?
Yeah. Or change how effectively you can share your own thoughts and ideas.
Language really is powerful. Even adding a few carefully chosen words can make a big difference.
Definitely something to think about.
Well, thanks for exploring the depths with us today. Ever feel like you're just staring at a page of academic text and it looks more like, I don't know, an alien language than English?
Oh, absolutely.
You see these huge, complex words popping up, and suddenly understanding what should be interesting feels, well, like a Herculean task.
It's a really common frustration, actually. That specialized vocabulary used in academic writing, it can definitely feel like a barrier sometimes.
Well, today on the deep dive, we're not backing down from that challenge. We're going to take a close look at academic vocabulary itself. We want to understand what makes it tick, and how you can navigate it with hopefully a bit more confidence.
Yeah, our goal isn't just defining words one by one. We want to explore the underlying structure of academic language, kind of peel back the layers.
Right.
We want to show you how getting a handle on a core set of words can actually unlock a much, much wider field of meaning.
Exactly. And for this exploration, we've gathered some really valuable resources. First up, we have the Academic Word List, or you'll hear it called the AWL. It's a list of 570 words. A linguist, Avril Coxhead, put it together back in 2001.
And what's so interesting about the AWL, I think, is how it was made. It wasn't just Coxhead's opinion, like these words feel important.
No, not at all.
She analyzed millions, literally millions of words from actual academic journals, textbooks, you name it, across a huge range of subjects. The goal was to find the words that pop up most frequently, regardless of the specific field.
So it's like the essential toolkit for academic language, really.
Pretty much, yeah. A solid foundation. And building on that, we also have something called the Academic Word Family List.
Okay.
This takes those 570 key AWL words and shows us their network, their related forms, the whole family, so to speak.
Ah, okay. And to give us an even broader picture, we're also looking at a couple of other lists, vocabulary lists, specifically designed for exams like the TOEFL and GRE.
Right. We've got the Prep Scholar TOEFL list. That one has 327 important words. And then there's the Manhattan Prep GRE list, which is bigger, about 1,000 words.
And what's really striking when you look at them together is how often these test prep lists overlap with the AWL or sort of expand on it.
Definitely. There's a lot of crossover. So our mission today really is to pull out the most useful insights from all these resources. We'll use the AWL as our anchor point, our foundation.
Makes sense.
And then we'll connect it to the TOEFL and GR lists where it makes sense, trying to reveal some important patterns and relationships between these words.
And speaking of relationships, one of the core ideas that really jumped out, especially from that ultimate TOEFL vocabulary list source, is this idea that words aren't islands. They're not isolated units. They exist within families, sharing core meanings.
Exactly. That's a key principle. Understanding one word in a family can give you a really significant head start in understanding the others.
Okay, so let's dig into that a bit more. This concept of word families.
Yeah, so what's fascinating here is the idea of a head word. You can think of it as the root of the family, the primary form of the word, usually the simplest form.
Okay, the head word.
And the academic word family list then shows how this head word can sort of morph, develop into different grammatical forms. You get nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, but they're all connected by that central meaning.
Right, and the example of abstract from the TOEFL list really brings this home, doesn't it?
It does.
You see abstract listed as an adjective, like an abstract idea, but also as a verb to abstract something, and even as a noun, like the abstract of an article.
Yeah, and then it branches out even further. You see abstraction, which is the noun for the concept or process. Abstractor, maybe someone who writes abstracts, and even words like abstracted or abstractedly. It can look a bit intimidating when you see them all listed out like that.
Yeah, a little overwhelming at first glance, maybe.
It might seem that way initially, but the real power, the key insight, is recognizing the connection between them.
Right.
So if you understand that abstract as an adjective means something existing as an idea, not physically, then you've got a good base. You can infer that abstraction is probably the process or state of being abstract.
Yeah.
And abstractor, well, that likely relates to the person doing it.
Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The TOEFL list gives this crucial piece of advice.
Which is?
Don't try to sit down and memorize every single variation in every word family. That just sounds incredibly inefficient, right?
Oh, totally. That would be a nightmare. Instead, the focus should really be on grasping the core meaning of the head word. Get that solid.
Get the head word down first.
Exactly. Once you have that solid foundation, you can often make a surprisingly accurate, educated guess about the meaning of its relatives, especially as you get more familiar with common linguistic patterns, like suffixes.
Which leads us perfectly to our next point. Those sometimes overlooked but incredibly important little additions at the end of word suffixes.
Yes.
The TOEFL list mentions bound derivational suffixes. Now that sounds pretty technical.
Yeah, it does sound a bit jargony.
Yeah, but what's the key takeaway? What does that mean for someone just trying to build their vocabulary?
Well, think of these suffixes as powerful clues. They often signal a change in the word's job, its grammatical function. They tell you if it's likely a noun, a verb, an adjective, or an adverb.
Ah, okay. So they give you grammatical hints.
Exactly. And they can also subtly tweak the meaning. The TOEFL list gives some helpful groupings. For instance, it points out how adjective endings like, say, terical often have a related ally form, like historical and historic, or economical and economic.
So something methodical carries a similar kind of meaning to the idea of method. Even if we don't really use methodal often, it's about seeing that shared root and the general flavor the suffix adds.
Precisely. Recognizing the family resemblance. And it's also useful to notice how a suffix like allynail can sometimes pop up as a noun ending too, often indicating an action or process. Think of refusal. That's the act of refusing.
Right, or arrival.
Good one, yeah. Similarly, the list notes that suffixes like allanization or allanation often simplify down to just allanation when they form a noun.
Okay, like organization from organize or communication from communicate.
Exactly. You see that experiencing ending. You know it's likely a noun referring to the act or result of the verb.
Now, there's a really efficient pattern highlighted in the notes that I found interesting. The suffixes buricism and ist.
Ah, yes, those are fantastic examples of efficiency in language.
They seem to carry a lot of meaning all by themselves, don't they?
They really do. What's remarkable about eticism and est is how consistent they are. You add ist to almost any root word, and you create a noun that means a believer in or practitioner of something.
Like artist, scientist, socialist.
Exactly. And then you add s-ism to the same root, and you generally get the noun meaning a doctrine, practice, system, or school of thought.
Impressionism, capitalism, feminism.
Right. It's an incredibly efficient system. Recognizing this pattern means you can instantly get a handle on the general meaning and the grammatical function that it's a noun of loads of potentially unfamiliar words.
It really does. Imagine you encounter a new word ending in isism or ist. Even if the root word is totally new, you immediately have a strong clue about its meaning. That's powerful.
Very powerful. And the list also highlights other common adjective suffixes like is, and isical, which we touched on. They generally mean something like characterized by or related to.
So words like cultural, spatial, historical, they all share that sense of connection or having the quality of the root word.
Correct. Understanding these common suffixes just adds another layer to your ability to decode academic language.
Okay, so we're starting to see how these word families and suffixes work together. Now let's bring in those other vocabulary lists we mentioned, the TOEFL and GR ones. It's really interesting to see how these core AWL words keep showing up there too.
Yeah, that overlap is, it's really telling. It underlines just how fundamental these AWL words are to general academic English. You're going to encounter them pretty much everywhere in academic settings.
Take a word like abundant, for instance. It's right there on the Prep Scholar TOEFL list, defined as present in large quantities.
Which makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah.
Academic writing often deals with significant amounts of data, evidence, research findings. Things are often abundant.
Exactly. And then there's accumulate. It's on the AWL, and it's also on the Prep Scholar list, meaning to gradually collect.
Which directly mirrors the academic process itself, doesn't it? Gathering information, building knowledge bit by bit through research.
Yeah, it does. Then you have advocate. It appears in both the AWL and the Prep Scholar list as to publicly support. And the noun form, advocacy, is so central to academic work, presenting arguments, defending ideas.
And the Manhattan Prep GRE list also includes advocate, defining it as speak or argue in favor of. So slightly different wording, but the same core concept that just reinforces its importance.
We see a similar thing with ambiguous. Prep Scholar says having several potential meanings, unclear and difficult to understand. Manhattan Prep defines it as not clear, hard to understand, open to having several meanings or interpretations. Again, very similar ideas.
And that highlights a key academic skill, right? The need for clarity, for precision, and the ability to critically analyze language to avoid those ambiguities.
Definitely. And even a seemingly simple word like alter from the AWL, just a verb meaning to change.
Yeah.
It connects to these broad academic concepts of change, modification, development that are discussed across so many fields. And look, Manhattan Prep even includes alteration, the noun form.
Right, a clear relative.
Yeah.
It shows the concept is important. And think about analyze. That's a core AWL word.
Absolutely fundamental.
Now, the verb analyze might not be explicitly listed on the Prep Scholar or Manhattan Prep list we looked at, but the idea of analysis, the noun form, is completely embedded in what those tests require.
Oh, for sure. You can't succeed on the TOEFL or GR without being able to analyze information.
Exactly. Success fundamentally depends on your ability to break down, interpret, and evaluate information. So the concept is crucial, even if the exact verb form isn't on every single list.
It's quite striking, isn't it? Seeing these same core words or their direct relatives popping up across different lists, all aimed at academic success. It really drives home their importance.
It really does. It's like these lists are collectively saying, look, if you want to operate effectively in an academic environment, whether it's reading texts or taking exams, you really need to get comfortable with these words.
It feels like a powerful reminder that focusing your vocabulary study on these core AWL words gives you a real strategic advantage. You're not just randomly learning words.
Precisely. You're targeting the high-frequency, high-utility vocabulary.
Okay, now, while understanding word families is clearly super helpful, the TOEFL list does include a bit of a warning sign, doesn't it?
Yes, a necessary caution.
It reminds us that just because words are in the same family, it doesn't mean all their meanings will be closely related or obvious.
This is a really crucial point to remember. You can't just assume. Just because words share a root doesn't automatically guarantee a direct, predictable semantic link across all forms.
And the example they use is conduct, right?
Exactly. Conduct is a perfect illustration.
Most people probably think of conduct first as meaning behavior, like someone's personal conduct.
Right. That's probably the most common meaning in everyday life. However, conduct also means to transmit energy, like how metal conducts heat or wires conduct electricity.
Okay, two quite different meanings there.
Very different. And as the TOEFL list points out, related words like conduction or conductivity, they clearly relate to that second meaning, the transmitting energy one.
Not usually related to behavior at all.
Nope. So the takeaway is context is absolutely critical, king, really. Even when you recognize a head word or a familiar root within a word, you still need to pay close attention to how that specific word is being used in the sentence, in the paragraph, to figure out the intended meaning. Don't just jump to conclusions based on the family connection alone.
Got it. Always check the context. So we've explored the power of head words, the clues you get from suffixes, and the reassurance, really, of seeing this core academic vocabulary pop up consistently across different important word lists. But let's bring it back to the listener. What does all of this actually mean for you? Why should you invest time in getting to grips with the AWL and word families?
Well, fundamentally, this understanding directly tackles that initial feeling we talked about, being overwhelmed by academic language.
Right, the alien language feeling.
Exactly. By focusing your efforts on these core, high-frequency AWL words, maybe around 570 of them, and learning to recognize their common variations, you're essentially building a really robust toolkit for dealing with academic texts.
So it makes the whole process less daunting.
Much less daunting, hopefully. You'll start to see the patterns, you'll be able to make more informed guesses about unfamiliar words, and yeah, ultimately feel more confident tackling complex material.
And let's not forget those big standardized tests. A strong grasp of the AWL and its related vocabulary, well, that's going to directly help your preparation for exams like TOEFL and GRE, isn't it?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
You're guaranteed to encounter these words frequently in the reading passages, the listening sections, everywhere. Knowing them well is a huge advantage.
So it's practical for exams, practical for reading.
And ultimately, I think it's about building confidence. When you understand the fundamental building blocks of the language used in academia, you feel more empowered to tackle challenging articles, to dive deeper into your subjects, and just navigate that whole academic world with greater assurance.
Absolutely. Okay, so to sort of wrap up our deep dive here, what are the main takeaways we want people to remember about academic vocabulary?
Okay, first, that academic word list, the AWL. It's an invaluable starting point, seriously useful. It represents that core set of words you'll meet again and again across all sorts of academic fields.
Right, focus there first.
Yeah.
Second,
understanding the concept of head words and learning to recognize common suffixes, those ol, oration, ixtation, oldest endings we talked about. It's like having a decoder ring. It unlocks the meanings of many related words without you having to memorize every single one individually. It's efficient.
Yeah, work smarter, not just harder. And the third point.
And third, crucially, always remember context. While word families are incredibly helpful, context is king. Be aware that words, even within the same family, can have multiple, sometimes quite different meanings, like conduct.
Okay, great summary. So by focusing on these core academic words, understanding their families, but always checking the context, you can definitely navigate complex texts more effectively and hopefully feel significantly less overwhelmed by all that new vocabulary.
Precisely. And maybe that leaves you with an interesting question to ponder. How often do you actually notice these core academic words cropping up in your everyday reading or listening? maybe even in places you wouldn't immediately think of as academic, like news articles or documentaries.
That's a great point. And following on from that, what new connections can you maybe start to see between the different forms of these words now, like seeing analyze and then noticing analytical or analysis used later?
Yeah. And perhaps the biggest question to think about is this. How might making a conscious focused effort to understand these headwords and their common variations fundamentally change the way you approach learning new subjects? It could really open up new pathways for understanding and ultimately for growth.
Welcome to the deep dive. You know how it is you want to really get to the core of something, cut through the noise without drowning in info? That's what we do here. And today, we're really zooming in for you on something that seems niche at first glance. It's vocabulary for the TOEFL exam.
Exactly. And the source we're looking at is this list from Prep Scholar. It's called Prep Scholar's Essential Vocab Series Complete Word List. It's got 327 words they say are crucial for the test.
Right.
But here's the interesting part, and why it's useful for, well, almost anyone interested in English. You might think, okay, test prep, but this list, it's basically a crash course in the kind of words you constantly encounter in academic settings, formal writing, that sort of thing.
So not just for test takers, then?
Not at all. If you want to sharpen your understanding, express yourself more clearly, whether it's for TOEFL or just better communication, this list is genuinely valuable.
Absolutely. It's like a shortcut to understanding those more sophisticated words you hear in serious discussions or read in detail articles. Okay, let's dive in. The list seems to start with some sort of foundational ideas like quantity, words like abundant, ample, adequate, copious, and then the opposite, paucity. Getting the nuances here feels pretty important, doesn't it? It changes how you picture the scale of things.
Oh, massively. Take abundant and copious. Hey, they both mean a lot,
Yep.
right? But copious, it often suggests an almost overflowing amount, like copious notes or copious rainfall.
Right, rainfall is a good example. Abundant rain sounds like plenty, but copious rain sounds like maybe too much, potential flooding.
Exactly. It hints at that huge volume. Then you have ample and adequate,
Huh.
both mean enough, but ample suggests a bit more than just the bare minimum, a comfortable amount.
Like ample time, more than you strictly need.
Precisely. Whereas adequate is just sufficient.
Right.
It meets the requirement, full stop.
And paucity.
That's clearly a lack, a scarcity. So yeah, understanding these helps you gauge resource levels, availability. It adds precision.
Okay. Then the list moves to words about change in quantity, like accumulate, augment, deplete, diminish, shrink. It's not just bigger or smaller, is it? There's a how involved.
Totally. Think about accumulate versus augment. Both mean increase, but accumulate often feels gradual, like dust accumulating or, wealth accumulating over years.
A slow buildup.
Yeah. Augment can feel more like a direct addition or enhancement, like augmenting a salary with a bonus or augmenting a collection.
So adding something specific to make it bigger or better.
Right. On the flip side, deplete usually means using something up significantly, maybe to a worrying degree. Depleting natural resources, for example.
Sounds more serious than just reducing.
It often is. Diminish and shrink feel, less drastic generally. Popularity diminishing, a company shrinking its workforce perhaps. It implies reduction, but maybe more gradual or less total than deplete.
That distinction is useful. Okay, still in this first section, we hit words about being correct, accurate, erroneous, precise, and valid. These seem fundamental for anything academic or, frankly, professional.
Oh, absolutely critical. Accurate is, generally correct, hitting the target. But precise adds another layer. It's about exactness, the level of detail.
So you could be accurate overall, but not very precise.
Exactly. Imagine measuring something. You might get the general size right, that's accurate, but precise measurements give you the exact millimeters, vital in science, engineering.
And erroneous.
Simply means wrong, containing an error, straightforward.
Okay. What about valid? How's that different from accurate?
Ah, good question. Valid is more about the logic, the reasoning, the soundness of an argument or a method. Your facts might be accurate, but if the way you connect them is flawed, your conclusion isn't valid.
Ah, okay. So validity is about the structure of the argument itself.
Spot on. Like in research, the methodology needs to be valid for the results to be trustworthy, even if individual data points seem accurate.
Right. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. The next section seems to be about relationships, connections, proximity. We have adjacent, coalesce, cohesion, integrate, proximity.
Different ways things can be near each other or come together. Adjacent is simple enough, just means next to, like adjacent rooms.
Or adjacent seats.
Yeah. And proximity is the general state of being near. Physical proximity, maybe temporal proximity.
Okay, but then coalesce and integrate sound more active, like things joining up.
They are. Coalesce often suggests different things merging together to form a single new whole. Think of small streams coalescing into a river, or ideas coalescing into a plan.
Like melting together.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas integrate usually implies bringing parts together into a system, but the parts might still retain some identity, like integrating new members into a team or integrating different technologies.
So integrate feels more structured, maybe.
Often, yes. The parts work together but are still distinct components.
Yeah.
And cohesion, that's the force or the state of sticking together. Team cohesion, social cohesion, unity.
Got it. That difference between coalesce and integrate is subtle but important. All right, next up. Agreement and disagreement. Words like concur, conflict, contradict, antagonize, quarrel.
Oh yeah, the vocabulary of getting along or not getting along.
Exactly.
Concur is just a slightly more formal way to say agree.
Yeah, okay.
Conflict and quarrel both mean disagreement. Conflict can be broader, like conflicting ideas or interests. Quarrel often sounds more personal, maybe a bit petty.
Like a verbal fight?
Yeah. Contradict is specific, saying the opposite of what someone else stated, directly challenging a fact or statement.
Antagonize. That sounds more deliberate.
It is. It means to provoke hostility or anger intentionally, trying to get a rise out of someone. You see that in debates sometimes.
Definitely. Okay, and related to this, there's support and opposition, advocate, boost, fortify, but then hinder, impair, oppose, opponent, resist, safeguard. That's quite a range.
It really covers the spectrum, doesn't it?
Yeah.
From actively supporting something to actively working against it. To advocate is to publicly support or recommend something. An advocate for human rights, for instance.
Like championing a cause.
Exactly. Boost and fortify both mean strengthen or support. Boosting morale, fortifying defenses.
Then the other side.
Hinder and impair mean to obstruct or weaken something. Bad weather hindering travel. And injury impairing ability.
Okay.
Oppose is simply to be against something. An opponent is the person or group on the other side.
Right.
To resist is to withstand pressure or force. Resisting change, resisting an attack, and a safeguard is a protective measure, like a safety regulation is a safeguard.
Understanding these is key to figuring out like the dynamics of a situation. Who's pushing, who's pulling.
Precisely.
All right, let's talk about change again, but maybe more about how things are changed. Modification, adjustment, we have adjust, amend, modify, refine, reform, regulate.
Yeah, this is about tweaking and controlling things. Adjust and modify are pretty general terms for making changes.
Like adjusting the volume or modifying a design?
Right. Amend and reform usually imply changing for the better. Amend often means making minor corrections or additions, like amending a document or a law.
Like the Bill of Rights consists of amendments?
Good example. Reform, though, usually suggests a bigger overhaul, more fundamental change aimed at improvement. Reforming the tax system, for instance.
A more significant change.
Definitely. To refine means to improve something by making small changes, making it more elegant or precise, refining an argument, refining a technique.
Polishing it.
Yes. And regulate means to control something with rules or laws, regulating an industry.
Okay. Then we get words describing the lifespan of actions. Beginning, middle, end. Cease, commence, continuously, endure, initial, persist, proceed, subsequent, terminal, transition.
This is basically the narrative toolkit, right? How you describe any process. Commence is a formal word for begin. Initial means the first one.
Start line.
Yep. Cease means to stop. Terminal often means final, the end point, like a terminal illness or a terminal station.
End of the line.
Exactly. Continuously means without any interruption, nonstop.
Whereas persist.
Persist means to continue doing something even when it's difficult or opposed. Showing determination.
Keep going despite the odds.
Right. Proceed just means to continue, often after a pause. Shall we proceed?
Okay.
Subsequent means coming after something else in time or order. The initial meeting and subsequent discussions.
Following on.
Yes. Endure means to last or survive through a difficult time. Enduring hardship.
And transition.
That's the process of changing from one state or condition to another, transitioning to a new job, the transition from winter to spring.
A shift. Got it. This whole group is essential for, like, telling any kind of story or explaining a sequence.
Absolutely.
And then rounding out the section on change, we have words for things that don't quite fit the pattern. Anomaly, deviate, disproportionate.
Yeah, the outliers, the exceptions. An anomaly is something unusual, unexpected, something that deviates from the standard. A blip in the data.
A weird result?
Kind of. To deviate is the verb to stray from the norm or the expected path.
Okay.
And disproportionate means out of proportion, unbalanced. Like a disproportionate response or a disproportionate allocation of funds, one part getting way more or less than seems fair or logical.
Imbalanced. Okay. Moving into expressing opinions and attitudes. This seems important for understanding tone. First, clarity versus, lack of clarity. Ambiguous, clarified, decipher, garbled, transparent.
Yeah, how clear is the communication?
Yeah.
Transparent means easy to see through, open, honest, like transparent pricing.
No hidden stuff.
Right. To clarify is to make something clear, easier to understand.
Please clarify that point.
Exactly. To decipher is needed when something isn't clear, figuring out bad handwriting or, deciphering a coded message.
Working it out.
On the unclear side, ambiguous means having more than one possible meaning, leading to uncertainty. An ambiguous statement.
You're not sure exactly what they mean?
Correct. And garbled is when the message itself is distorted, mixed up, hard to understand, like a garbled radio transmission.
Okay. Then we get some pretty strong words. Judgment, disapproval, censure, berate, rebuke, reproach, vilify. These all sound quite negative.
They definitely are. These are words for strong criticism.
Sure.
Censure, rebuke, and reproach all mean express disapproval. Rebuke often feels sharper, more direct.
Like telling someone off?
Sort of. To berate is even stronger. It means to scold someone angrily and at length, really laying into them.
Ouch.
Yeah. And vilify is about attacking someone's reputation, speaking or writing about them in an abusively disparaging way, making them out to be a villain.
Like character assassination.
Pretty much. You see that in politics, unfortunately.
True. Okay, last in this section. Doubt and certainty. Assume, cognizant, indisputable, infer, speculate, suspicious. How sure are we?
That's the question these words address. To assume or speculate is to suppose something without definite proof. Guessing, basically, though maybe with some basis.
Educated guess, perhaps.
Maybe. To infer is a bit different. It's drawing a conclusion based on evidence and reasoning, even if it's not explicitly stated. Reading between the lines.
Deduction?
Yeah. To be cognizant is simply to be aware of something, to have knowledge of it.
Like we are cognizant of the risks.
Perfect. Indisputable means it's undeniable, absolutely certain, cannot be argued against. An indisputable fact.
Arc solid.
And suspicious implies doubt or distrust. Thinking something is wrong or someone is dishonest without necessarily having proof yet.
Having a bad feeling about it.
Basically, yeah.
Okay, section 5 looks at importance and influence. Words like core, crucial, fundamental, integral, major, primary, significant.
These are always to say important, but with slightly different flavors. Core, fundamental, primary often point to the absolute basics, the essential foundation, the core issue, fundamental principles, primary reason.
The bedrock.
Yeah. Crucial and integral stress necessity. Something is crucial if it's decisive or critical. Something is integral if it's essential to make the whole complete. Like this part is integral to the machine.
Can't do without it.
Right. Major and significant indicate considerable importance or size or effect.
Yeah.
A major discovery, a significant increase.
Big deals.
Exactly.
Then, relatedly, words about effect, impact, influence, effect, and the opposite, ineffective.
Yeah, what difference does it make? Impact and influence are nouns referring to the effect, the impact of the storm, the influence of peers.
Okay.
Affect is the verb, to produce a change in something. The weather affected our plans.
Got it. Effect with an A is the verb.
Usually, yes. And ineffective just means it didn't work, didn't produce the desired result, an ineffective strategy.
Simple enough. And rounding out this section, advantage and disadvantage. Advantage, adverse, detrimental, exploit. Clear positive, negative vibes here.
Very clear. An advantage is obviously a benefit, something helpful.
Gives you an edge.
Yep. Adverse and detrimental both mean harmful or unfavorable. Adverse effects, detrimental consequences, both negative.
Bad news.
Right. And exploit is interesting. It can mean to make use of something, like exploiting resources, but it very often carries a negative meaning.
Taking unfair advantage of a situation or person. Exploiting workers.
So context is key for exploit.
Absolutely crucial.
Okay, final big section. This looks like it's all about people, behavior, character, skills, effort. Lots of descriptive words here. Personality traits first. Wow, quite a list. Adamant, aggressive, ambitious, brash, brusque, eloquent, hasty, hostile, intrepid, irascible, irresolute, leery, morose, negligent, nonchalant, parsimonious, pragmatic, superficial, squalid, and upbeat.
That's a mouthful. Yeah, a real spectrum of ways to describe someone. Let's see. Adamant is stubborn, unyielding, refusing to change their mind.
Dug in.
Aggressive and hostile are unfriendly, forceful, maybe ready for a fight.
Yep.
Ambitious, strong desire to succeed. We know that one.
Brash and brusque. They're about being kind of rude or abrupt. Brash is often overly bold and tactless. Brusque is more curt, short, maybe unfriendly in manner.
Like snapping at someone.
Could be. Eloquent is the opposite, speaking beautifully, persuasively,
Smooth talker.
in a good way. Hasty means acting too quickly, maybe carelessly. Rushing things.
Rare.
Similar, yeah. Intrepid means fearless, brave, like an intrepid explorer.
Adventurous.
Definitely. Irascible, easily angered, grumpy.
Short fuse.
Exactly. Irresolute means indecisive. Can't make up their mind.
Hesitant.
Leery means cautious or wary. Suspicious, being leery of a stranger.
Untrusting.
Yeah. Morose is gloomy, sullen, ill-tempered.
You're like.
Good one. Negligent means failing to take proper care, like negligence leading to an accident.
Careless.
Yes. Nonchalant is coolly unconcerned, indifferent, acting like nothing bothers them.
Playing it cool.
Kind of. Parsimonious means stingy, overly frugal, doesn't like spending money.
Tight-fisted.
Yep. Pragmatic means practical, realistic, focused on results rather than theories.
Down to earth.
Right. Superficial means concerned only with the surface, lacking depth. Superficial interests.
Not deep.
No. Squalid means dirty, unpleasant, often due to poverty or neglect. Squalid living conditions.
Grim.
Very. And finally, upbeat, cheerful, optimistic.
The positive end of the spectrum. That's a lot of ways to describe people.
It really shows the richness of the language for capturing personality nuances.
Okay, then we have words about skill. How good someone is at something. Adept, competent, expertise, incompetent, knack, mediocre, proficient.
Right, so adept and proficient both mean skilled, very capable. Adept sometimes suggests a natural skillfulness, too.
Good at it.
Yeah. Competent means having enough skill to do something satisfactorily. Maybe not brilliant, but gets the job done.
Beats the standard.
Expertise is the highest level specialized skill or knowledge. Real mastery.
Top of their game.
Exactly. Knack is a natural talent or skill for doing something easily, like having a knack for languages.
It just comes naturally.
Right. Mediocre means just average, ordinary, not very good, pretty much. And incompetent is the opposite of competent, lacking the necessary skill or ability.
Can't do it right.
Unfortunately, yes.
And the last little group here, effort and difficulty. Arduous, cumbersome, ease, efficient, laborious.
How hard is the work? Arduous and laborious both mean requiring a lot of effort, difficult and tiring. An arduous journey, laborious task.
Hard work.
Definitely. Cumbersome means awkward to handle or manage, often because of size or complexity. Cumbersome procedures, cumbersome equipment.
Clunky, maybe.
Good word for it. Ease, of course, means lack of difficulty.
Yeah.
Doing something with ease.
Simple.
And efficient means working well without wasting time or energy. Getting the most output for the least input.
Productive.
Highly productive, yes.
So that's the list, or at least the categories we've pulled out. As we wrap up this deep dive, it really strikes me, again, how this goes way beyond just a test.
Absolutely. You look at these words from Prep Scholar's list, and you see the building blocks for expressing really complex ideas, for understanding subtle distinctions in arguments, in descriptions.
It's about precision, isn't it? Choosing the right word, not just a word.
Exactly. And in building this kind of vocabulary, well, it empowers you. It helps you not just understand what you read and hear on a deeper level, but also to articulate your own thoughts much more effectively.
It really makes you think, what if you consciously tried to weave, say, 5 or 10 of these words into how you speak and write? How might that subtly shift your own thinking and communication?
That's a fascinating takeaway for you, the listener. Think about it. Are there other areas, maybe completely unrelated, where diving deep into a specific set of terms or concepts could unlock a surprisingly broad understanding? Perhaps, as we said earlier, revisiting that full Prep Scholar list might spark some ideas. Or maybe looking into the specialized language of a field you're curious about.
Yeah, definitely food for thought. This focused approach to vocabulary really highlights a powerful way to learn. Thanks for digging into this with me.
My pleasure. It was interesting.